20. I'd like to take a moment to review our general operating procedures. An applicant on the agenda is called. The applicant gives his or her name and address for the record, then make your presentation. The board members ask questions. If any members of the public make their comments, we will only allow 4 people to speak for an application and 4 against an application. Each speaker can speak for 5 minutes, subject to questions by the board. And after 4 minutes, a loud beep will indicate 1 minute left to speak. And at this point, please summarize your comments. After all opposition speakers have finished, the applicant will be given time to respond. If you do intend to speak, we ask that you will please come to the podium and give your name and address for our minutes. Please direct all comments to the board only and not to the applicant or the audience. Please direct any and all questions of the applicant or the staff directly to the board, and we ask that you will please speak directly into the microphone. After hearing the application, the board will go into the deliberations. In deliberations, the board members will discuss the application with input from the staff as necessary, but with no input from the audience. The chair would then call for a motion and vote. The Board of Zoning Adjustments is a 7-member board. Please note that approval of a variance requires a minimum of 5 affirmative votes. All decisions of the board are final. If there is anyone aggrieved by the decision of the board, you may appeal it to the circuit court within 15 days of the board's decision. Also, no permits or licenses can be issued until the 15-day appeal period has expired and no appeal has been filed. We will call the roll now. We do not have our chairman of the board, Mr. Guest, here with us today. However, we're going to call the roll for John Burroughs. Here. Jeremy Millings. Here. Adam Metcalf. Here. Louis Golden. Here. Vernon Coleman. Here. And I'm Sanford Davis, serving as your vice chairman today. I think I've been inclusive in our procedure information for you today, and we will proceed now with our agenda as it is printed. Number 6307, case number 001178-2020, Robert Morin, RA, 300 St. Louis Street. Please come.
I'm Robert.
All right, sir.
Sorry.
Go ahead, give us your name and address, please, for the minutes.
Robert Morin, 601 St. Anthony.
Yes, sir. Your application is before us today, and it comes with a recommendation for the board to consider all relevant aspects of the request and determine if the requested variance merit approval or denial based upon the finding of our facts. If you
Yes.
would, please persuade us one way or the other.
Well, we propose to build a 5-story building we believe will enhance Mobile in the downtown on St. Louis Street at the 300 block. The code requires a 3-story. We're proposing 5. I think that's the main concern of the variance. And the code will allow for an increase in height if you're on the edge of a particular district. We're not on the edge, so we fall in a valley between taller buildings, and there's many tall buildings, and taller buildings proposed to go in that same area just a block away. Because we can't fall into that next taller district, our only hope, our only fallback or request is to go to a variance for the height. And so we don't believe it's fair. We don't think the code is correct in this because there's a swath of taller buildings to the east and west. And like I said, we fall in that valley. And so that's our hardship.
Yes, sir. Now, this is a holdover from last month at least, I'm sorry, where you came before us, and we're here today to hear your appeal on this matter. Anything else you want to add to that?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. Well, at this time, we will hear anyone in favor of this application. If you would, please come and speak to us at this time. You may be seated, Mr. Marty.
I'm Robert J. Isaacson. I'm the owner, 740 Museum Drive, Mobile, Alabama. If I might, Mr. Chairman, I have an aerial zoning map of the area. And that shows the extent of the T51 zoning for downtown. I think on the other side, maybe. The one that has a black marker on it? Sorry. Yeah. This will show you the, I believe, the way in which this was zoned, where this small strip of St. Louis Street was omitted from the overall zoning for 5-story or 6-story buildings. This shows that you have almost 92 lots in downtown zoned for 3-story zoning, when in fact the entire maneuver of downtown is to attract high-density residential, or Class A residential. Class A residential consists of generally 5 or 6-story buildings, on the bottom floor or 2 of which are retail and parking. At the top of the retail and parking, you then put a concrete slab. And above that, you can build 4 stories much less expensively, and so therefore they can be used in the market. Those are called Class A residential. Every city in America is doing everything it can to create as many Class A residential buildings in downtown, in the city of the downtown, as they possibly can, many of which are highly subsidizing those buildings. The zoning that was put in place that has the T51 zoning with 3-story maximum was done about 7 years ago. I believe if you ask any of the authors of that zoning, the market has matured away from that restriction and has matured into the 5 or 6-story building being the most desired building to supplement the developments in downtown, in a downtown. The issue that we have is that the remainder of, as you can see on this one, of St. Louis Street, there's 14 buildings in the St. Louis corridor that are more than 3 stories tall. They go up to 12 stories, I think. One of which was built in the last 2 years at 8 stories in the T51 district, but it was built by the federal government, who are immune from the zoning board. 2 blocks from us. Caddy corner from us is an 8-story building that's going to be converted into residential soon. It's the AT&T building. So we believe that we were discriminated against, and we believe there's an error in the zoning. I, again, will tell you that I don't think that the people who wrote this believe that it's currently appropriate to have the 3-story zoning restriction. But in order to make the change is a 2 to 3 year process. If we have to wait for the change, you're going to stymie tremendous numbers of new buildings. Now, 3 blocks from us, currently, I think they're also on this agenda, is another building at 6 stories. And they are actually in a little slightly different zoning category, but they are 3 blocks down the street from us on the same street. We began developing on this street in order to make a walkable community. In order to have walkable communities, you have to have residences. In order to attract retail, you have to have residences, and that's what this will do. In addition, you need high-density residential, just like you have in the French Quarter, just like you have in many of the other downtowns. You need high density so people will walk and involve themselves. Also, in our balconies, we have to, the arcade that we've designed, the arcade is necessary to provide structural support to the balconies above. I'm available for any additional questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the board for the?
I got a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Burrow.
Yes, sir.
Have you done any economic studies about what impact this facility would have on the city itself?
All positive.
Yeah.
All positive. Every downtown is attempting to develop their downtowns into walkable communities. The street that we're located on would be called, previously be called an auto sewer. Auto sewer is where you built it for cars to go like a sewer. That just come in and go. No pedestrians. You want to keep the pedestrians off. In fact, the traffic engineers that would have designed that street would have called pedestrians a movable hazardous object. And so now what's happening is the street is being redesigned and downtown is being redesigned for residents, for pedestrians. I remember driving down that street 2 years ago. I built a cheese cottage. We did the Old Majestic Brew Pub. And we were driving down the street. We saw the first 2 ladies dressed up walking down the street. We were just elated. It was the transformation, the beginning of the transformation back of that sewer, that auto sewer. And now the city's put up a lot of money to redo the sidewalks and the lights and things of this nature. And we believe very strongly that also when you're doing a downtown area such as St. Louis Street, you want to try to place make. And I try to do that with all of my family and I try to do that with all of our developments. We create some kind of a place that people want to come to make sure that it's successful and it's an attribute. And we're trying to place make here at this intersection. We have Greer's there on the corner, Greer's Fresh. We have an 1860s office building that's been completely restored. We took an old parking lot. We're going to bring that old parking lot back. And now we have in this parking lot, we're converting this old parking lot into a major development. One last item. We had a speaker here two years ago speaking to the Downtown Alliance annual meeting. And if any of you might have remembered, one of his most ardent comments were that our vacant parking lots were a scar on the soul of the downtown Mobile. A scar on the soul of downtown Mobile. And what we're trying to do is to begin this process of removing these scars on our soul.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Any of the board members? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else in favor of?
Public speak?
Yes, sir.
I'll say something.
Yes, sir. Come right on. Name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Ken Kitchens. I'm a property owner on St. Louis. My address is 1908 Old Government Street, and I'm a little flabbergasted with this. I've been a property owner on St. Louis for quite some period of time. maybe not as long as a lot of people around here, but 10 years or so. And I've seen that place rise from the dumps to markedly improved. And I'm flabbergasted that we would be discussing a couple of stories when we're trying to develop, I think, Mobile and improve this city. And for 2 stories, when there are all these buildings that exceed 3 stories in that area, I can't believe that we would be so litigious that we would look at code and not look at it as it's not a law. It's totally amendable. It's totally variable. That's why we have this variance, of course. Pardon me. I know you know this. But I'm just flabbergasted that this is even an issue. We're trying, this development would improve that street. I have property on the street. I'm 100% for it. I see no reason why we would not approve this variance.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the gentleman? Thank you, sir, very much. Anyone else in favor of? Yes, ma'am. Please come down. Name and address for the record, please.
My name's Elizabeth Stevens, 261 Dolphin Street. I just wanted to give a little context for the code and kind of where we are with the code and with this height limit, et cetera. This code was written about 10 years ago, adopted in 2014, and the marketplace was a very different place at that time. Prior to that, the downtown had virtually no height limits. And what the outcome of that was that we would get a really tall building every 10 years or so, blow up the market, and then we weren't getting the infill that was needed across the whole of downtown. The code, DPZ, when they were writing the code, they talked about this in every meeting, they were very communicative about why the height limits were recommended and the outcome of trying to push more development, get more lots developed, et cetera. I think today we're in a very different place than we were back in 2008, 9, and 10 when they were writing the code. I think it is time to consider changing the height limits. I would recommend Broad Street and St. Louis would be the 2 prime streets to do that for the T5 categories. Why? Both streets are wider than normal downtown streets. They can handle bigger buildings. The new plan for Mobile shows on Broad Street 5- and 6-story buildings. The new plan is the plan on which everything is built. St. Louis Street and Broad Street are both currently in a process of the city redoing the street to make them more walkable places. And so the times have changed and the time has changed. And so I just wanted to give you all some context because obviously the previous gentleman was kind of confused as to why we're here, and that is the context of the code under which you're operating. But I do think it is time to consider, specifically on those 2 streets, the potential for increasing the height limit slightly.
Any questions from the board? Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
We have a slot for one more if you'd like to speak in favor of. If not, that was 4. Okay, I can't count. Okay. Anyone in opposition, if you would, please come. Anyone in opposition? If not, discussion of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Metcalf.
I believe that the applicant and the speakers have done an excellent job in explaining the situation, and I believe that there is a hardship. I believe that the ordinance, I believe it's flawed. I believe that although there was a lot of work that went into it, I think it's arbitrary to a certain degree, and I think they're unduly burdened by that ordinance in that particular spot. And I applaud them for what they're doing. I think it is absolutely appropriate, and I want to see it done, and I move to approve the application.
I second it, yeah.
Second.
Motion and seconded twice. You've heard it as stated. Are you ready for the question? All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign of aye. Aye. Opposed by the same, hearing none. You have it, sir. Approved.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our next application, thank you very much, sir. Yes, sir, thank you. Comes under extensions, and it's number 6277, 00/10/18/2019, Spring Hill Medical Center. If you would, please come, the representative.
I'm here for Spring Hill Medical Center.
Sir?
I'm here for Spring Hill Medical Center.
Yes, sir.
My name is Stephen Crenshaw. I represent the property at 3719 Dauphin. And we would appreciate an extension of the existing variance in order to allow us to finalize our logos.
Okay. The request is for an extension for 6 months. What's the position of the board?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved, properly seconded. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same, hear none.
Thank you
We have
very
a
much.
6 months extension. Yes, sir. Thank you. Moving into our public hearings, we have numbers 6310, 6138, 5104, Mon Enterprises Incorporated, 101 East, I-65 Service Road South. Please come, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Carrie Little, and I represent Munn Enterprises, the sign manufacturer installation company, who is representing Walmart from Bentonville, Arkansas. We are asking for a variance for 2 additional signs on the building. They need some informational directional signs. As you know, Walmart has multiple entrances. They have a lawn and garden, auto center, have a grocery entrance, and then a home and goods entrance. 2 of the entrances that are their main entrances, one is grocery and one is home and pharmacy. Those are the 2 signs that we're asking for the variance for. So customers, when they come in, they're directed to which area to park at. So that is our request, that we can get 2 additional wall signs. They are non-illuminated, plastic form, so they will not be aggressive in any way. They won't be lit. They're just white plastic form.
Okay, staff recommends approval for your application. However, is there anyone in opposition to this application? Anyone in favor of the application? What's the position of the board?
Mr. Chairman, move for approval, subject to the recommendation made by the staff.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. You've heard it as stated. Are you ready for the question? All in favor, let it be known by the usual sign.
Aye.
Opposes by the same, hearing none, so ordered, ma'am. You have your approval.
Thank you.
Number 6311, 5363, Rocco Signs, Cons Home Plus, 3250 Airport Boulevard. Please come, sir. Name.
I'm Wade Wright, Ryko Signs, 3345 Halls Mill Road. And we're here for Cons Home Plus, which is going in the Springdale Mall. And we're just asking for some additional signs. Mainline sign is in place and approved, but just the signs that say appliances, furniture, etc.
Okay, staff recommends the following finding of facts for approval. Sign variance to allow increased informational wall sign larger than 20 square feet for a business on a multi-tenant site in B3 community business, and the stipulations are outlined here. Anyone in favor of this application? Anyone in opposition of this application?
Mr.
Yes, ma'am,
Chairman,
Ms. Margaret.
I do want to point out, while the staff has recommended approval of the wall sign, the increased wall signs, we have recommended denial of the vehicle signs to be parked out, that are proposed to be parked out front prior to opening.
So we have a two-part recommendation here
Right.
from the board. Do we need to take them, what's the question? You have a question?
Are the vehicles temporary?
Yes, the trailer, they just wanted to park out there right before they opened and right after.
And they will be removed after that?
Yes, sir, it's going to be a tractor-trailer rig.
How long? How long will it be out there?
How long?
I think 30 days after opening.
60, staff report says 60, up to 60 following stores open.
Up to 60.
Vehicular signage is not allowed in the ordinance.
So we have a two-part application here that we
Correct.
need to take in that order. We'll take the first part, the approval aspect of it, and this, the following conditions: limitation of the signs to the sizes as submitted in the application. Number 2, the obtaining of the proper sign permits for the signs. And number 3, full compliance with all municipal codes and ordinances. And the staff recommends, I'm sorry. That's the denial aspect of it. We'll deal with that since I'm here.
That's
No,
the
recommended.
recommendations for
Okay.
approval for the wall signs.
Okay, it's before you. What's the position of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the wall signs as proposed.
Yes, second.
Moved, properly seconded, you've heard it. Are you ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposes by the same, hearing none. So ordered on the approval of the recommendation from the staff. Staff recommends the following finding of fact for denial. And it's approving the variance request will be contrary to the public interest due to the fact that no hardship for its alliance has been demonstrated. Number 2, special conditions do not appear to exist such that a literal enforcement of the provisions of the chapter will result in unnecessary hardship. And 3, that the spirit of the chapter shall not be observed and substantial justice not be done to the applicant in the surrounding neighborhood by granting the variance, and that it would allow a business further visibility which would ordinarily not be possible without the demonstration of a hardship. What's the position of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
are we hearing, in a second part?
Right.
Okay. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Springdale Mall and Bel Air Mall their fate is tenuous, just like all major shopping centers, regional shopping centers of that size, and I frankly worry about it. And this location that this one's going has been a problem. I think it's because of where it's situated on the master property. And I personally want to do anything I can do to make this a success. And I would recommend or make a motion to allow the truck signage for no more than 30 days before and no more than 30 days after. That's my motion. You have a second?
Been motioned and seconded for approval of this application in allowing the parking. All in favor, let it be known.
Aye.
Opposes by the same.
Opposed?
Motion passes. Right.
Okay.
Right,
All right.
counsel? We're good. Motion passed.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, moving right along. Number 6312, Board of Adjustments, number 001205-2020, Brian Ward, 3805 Spring Hill Avenue. If you would, please come, sir.
Good morning. William Latta, Clark Gear Latham and Associates, 3901 Spring Hill Avenue. I'm the civil engineer for the project. This project is for the site at 3805 Spring Hill Avenue. It is for an office building. The variances are not a question of use. It is zoned correctly for the use we are proposing. It is more a function of site design. The variances listed are done to bring the site in more compliance and to further match the existing Village of Spring Hill ordinances, while also taking into consideration the difficulties of a corner site and a large radius at the intersection. One clarification I want to make with the staff report, I was unaware that on our architectural site plan, the square footage is listed as 5,395. That is the building footprint. It is a 3-story building, so it's 3 times that. Where that comes into play is with our parking calculations. Our parking allowed should be approximately 45 spaces instead of 22. It just brings us a little closer. We're still over and we're still requesting that variance, but it's just less of a contrast with the report. Other than that, we're in agreement with the staff report as it's written.
Any questions of the board for the applicant? Anyone in favor of this application, please come. Anyone in opposition to this application, please come and give us your name and address.
Good afternoon. My name is James McNair, and I live at 3767 Spring Hill Avenue. I'm next door to the proposed property. I'm opposing to the current proposal for the presentation of the situation for my wall. I need a wall between their property and my property. I want to know what kind of wall they're talking about, because that could be a commercial area. I have a resident area right next door to them. And I got to get verification of just exactly what they're going to put up there.
Okay, you want to have a seat a minute to see if we can get some clarification on your concern?
Excuse me?
You want to have a seat just for a moment? Sir, would you like to come back and give us some clarification on that, please?
Yes, because like I said, it is commercial.
Yes, sir.
I need a buffer wall.
Yes, sir.
If they put one, I need it all the way down.
Yes, sir. He's going to speak to that. He's going to
Okay.
tell us what the plan is.
Yeah, so the reason for these variances are to allow us to come under the Village of Spring Hill ordinances. As part of those ordinances, we have the garden walls, fences, and hedges ordinance, and rear yards and side yards, where we have to provide a minimum height of 36 inches with a maximum height of 6 feet in between all business and residential properties. So there will definitely be a buffer wall in between the two.
The application says, the staff report says 6-foot-high garden wall, is that?
That is along the frontage of Spring Hill.
Right, yeah.
Now, along the side and rear property line, since we're coming under the Village of Spring Hill ordinance, we would have to comply with this garden wall, fences, and hedges
You live across Spring Hill Avenue?
next door.
Next door?
So,
Okay, sir.
He's commercial.
Any other concerns on this application? Come on, sir.
We didn't hear what he said. He said he was going to do something along that side.
Sir, can you be clearer to the opposition as to what you're planning on? I'm sorry. Come on, Ms. Malton. Let's see.
The gentleman, I believe, based on his description, lives here. which is zoned commercially. However, the ordinance, if the property is utilized residentially, which it is, it would require the buffer, which is a minimum 6-foot wooden privacy fence between this development and his residence.
Okay.
So that is automatic.
That's all right. Okay, sir. Sir, if you're not clear or have any further questions, please come back. Six-foot minimum. Is that okay? You all fine? Any? Sir? Do we have a copy of that for them? We'll provide you with one, sir. Yes, sir. Anyone else in opposition? All right. Board discussion.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
What's,
Did-
I'm
did-
sorry,
did-
excuse me. Yes, ma'am, council lady. I'm sorry. Anyone in favor of this application? Please forgive me. Please forgive me.
Linda St. John, 320 Avalon Street, Mobile, 36608. I am president of the Village of Spring Hill, and District 7 council member Gina Gregory and I met on several occasions with the owner, Brian Ward, the developer, John Vallis, the engineer, William Latta, who you heard from, and the architect, Mark Hammond. Our goal in our meetings was to bring this development as close into compliance with the Village of Spring Hill Master Plan as possible. We also wanted to continue to meet the needs of the developer and the owner of the property, but we also wanted to protect the integrity of the surrounding neighborhood as well. And that's why, according to the Village of Spring Hill Master Plan, a garden wall of only 3 feet is required. But because of the contour of the property being higher in the back than in the front, the 3 feet was not going to screen the parking from the residential area. So we requested that it be a 6 feet, and they agreed. You know, everything was very amicably discussed. The proposed variances for this development addresses all of those goals that we set forth in our meetings with the applicant. If they develop according to the city code, they can move the building all the way to the back, and I guess the city can speak to this, but I don't think any screening of any parking would be required. And that was our goal, is to make sure that the parking was screened and still met the needs of their parking ratios that they required for the business. Do y'all have any questions for me?
I have a question for you.
Okay.
My question is, did the owner talk to the neighbors?
I don't know.
Huh?
Please come to the mic if you have something to say.
Don't leave.
Don't leave, man. Please.
My name is Melvin Jackson. I'm a executive member of Sandtown Community Action Group. The first time we got any notice about what was going on in this piece of property that's less than 150 yards from my home, I live directly across the street. The gentleman that was speaking, he's just east of this piece of property, was when we got this notice, and we've done some investigating, and I am cautious. Excuse me. I'm cautious about what is going on. We think that the building is a little bit too close to McGregor Avenue. At the 12-foot variance that they're asking for here, those buildings on this side of McGregor Avenue were supposed to be back 25 feet. There's already a building that we believe is way too close to the to McGregor Avenue. And adding a second building only legitimizes the first. Now, I don't know how that happened, but it was a part of the Village of Spring Hill plan. But Sandtown Community Action Group is a historic organization, or rather, community, that families have been living in this area, and that gentleman is one of those members for well over 100 years. We understand how the progress of this is going, and we are not opposed to all of the things that's done. We would just like to be included in these huge moves that they are making in a historic community in Spring Hill. We just had a huge discussion, but we understand that this is a variance. It's not necessarily a zoning issue, but we know what the traffic is on Spring Hill, and we know that they have access directly to Spring Hill. So, without being I don't want to be dismissive of what they're saying, we just hope that we can be included in your planning, and we would like to revisit how close this is to McGregor Avenue right now.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question.
I got a question.
Okay, we'll finish with Mr. Coleman first.
Yeah. In the village of Spring Hill, that plan, how many members are on that board?
I believe there are 11 right now.
Any of them minorities?
No.
You don't have a problem with that?
We have a problem getting board members.
Evidently, a lot of black people that would be willing to serve live over there in Sandtown.
Well, and we feel like we represent everybody. I mean, like we
How
said.
can you represent everybody when one population not there?
Mr. Coleman, let's not get argumentative. She was trying to answer your question. Give her a chance to answer your question, okay? Thank you.
When we met with this developer, he contacted us. We didn't contact him. And we try, each time a developer contacts us to try to get them to develop according to the Village of Spring Hill Master Plan. That is a lot like what Mr. Isaacson was talking about on downtown. We're building a walkable community where the buildings are placed closer to the street, the sidewalks are real wide, and actually in this particular development, by moving the building up to the front of the street where it can be more of a commercial setting, it acts as a buffer to protect the residential areas, and then with us asking for a 6-foot screen for the parking, it's a green screen.
I don't have any problem with the plan. I have problem with who's doing the plan. That's my problem. When there's one community that's being absolutely disregarded, no representation at all. As a result, these are people against it because it affects them, but they had no voice. That's my comment.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Coleman. Mr. Millings first, and then Mr. Burrows, okay?
I had a question for Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir.
Come on down, sir. Please, just stay where you are, man, if you don't mind.
What is your, I guess, drawback with having the building closer to the street? How is that presenting a problem?
Okay, we were informed after he built this building, that it was supposed to be back 25 feet, which is in accordance with the homes and the buildings that were on that all the way up to, let's see, McGregor, Shipes Lane, and then Mordecai, okay? All of those homes were back 25 feet. You can see from that picture that his business is all the way on the front end of the road. And when he built the sidewalk that he did, he took some of the roadway out that was in there in order to create, his own sidewalk going around this, So, I don't know how all of that got to the planning, in the planning event for that piece. But by putting another one, that's exactly 12 feet away, 12 feet from that corner going into Spring Hill Avenue, you can't see around the corner. So you don't know what you're going into. You know, when it can be another vehicle around there. You can't see as you're making the turn. If you go back to his, yes, the satellite view. The satellite view shows you that corner. And as you can see, going into that corner, you can't see because there's a painted roadway, and then you're into that corner going into Spring Hill Avenue, which has a huge traffic problem already.
But you have to, so that building is set back, what, 50 feet? Is that right?
From what they've told me, it's a beautiful design.
Yeah.
But from what they've told me, that if they move it back, then you would have no wall, and you would have to, it would be moved into the parking now. Parking would be all around it. And we would be looking across the street at that all the time, and the gentleman would be looking at it from his home all the time. My problem is that the traffic and the parking and all of that area, that's a residential area that's been there for generations. The families that are across that street and just to the right of where that piece of property is have been there. It's 2 books that's been written about the families that are in that area.
And I guess that's what I'm trying to understand, because one, I live in the area, and so I take that route all the time. Right. And to me, it's been the opposite since the other gentleman's building's been there. You know, now that you can't see as well coming around in the way that works, it seems like you slow down a lot quicker to get, and so it seems like it's helping the issue, not hurting it. Real quick, let me just say one other thing.
Yes, sir.
The other thing is that my knowledge of the Village of Spring Hill and what they've tried to do in the area is to have an overlay plan that does provide for more thoughtful commercial development, because that development that property's been commercial, and I guess y'all knew that correctly. Yes. And so I'm just surprised just in the sense, because it seems like that the traditional neighborhood development's goal has been to try to make it more neighborhood friendly.
Well,
and that's why I'm trying to understand what your objections are as how that's not doing that.
Fulfilling its commercial value and commercial whatever right now, if that's what you're asking. I think that is, but I also believe that there have been pieces of property added to this more recently that have rendered a larger portion of that corner as now B2. It's blossomed from the corner to include 7, I believe, what used to be residential areas that is now included in the Village of Spring Hill's deal. I know Miss St. John's. She's a good woman, and we've spoken, but I think the gentleman was correct that it should be more interaction. We have a 501c3 that is in the area that we have currently, just gotten into. We didn't even know that this was something that the Village of Spring Hill did. We thought that they didn't get into variances and this kind of thing. But we would like to be a part of the planning of the community that we are in. We can be helpful. I've always been that way. We don't want to be left out in a community of hundreds of year-old families. We just didn't want to be left out of the planning of something that is important as this.
I can speak to 2 things that might clarify some of this, is that the Village of Spring Hill, master plan was passed by the Planning Commission and the City Council in 2006, I believe, as an optional plan for the City of Mobile. So when developers come into Spring Hill, They can either choose to develop according to the Village of Spring Hill Master Plan, or they can choose to develop according to the traditional Mobile coding. And it was also adopted into the city as a master plan for Spring Hill. And we had a huge charrette and planning that everyone in the community was invited to and encouraged to participate in. Another thing to speak to the roadway. The roadway is already going to be redone. Right now, where Reggie was saying that it might block the view coming around the corner, it has already been funded by county pay-as-you-go funding to bring the roadway up to a 3-lane, not a 5-lane, into a T intersection so that it will be signaled. So every car that comes up to the T to take a right onto Spring Hill Avenue or go east, they would be signaled a red light that they would have to stop and then turn, which actually is going to make it a lot more pedestrian-friendly. We're going to have large crosswalks that are signaled so that anybody walking, like I said, we're building a walkable community. And so everything that we are doing keeps in mind the integrity of the community and also the safety of trying to increase the pedestrian activity in the area and trying to get the commercial development to develop accordingly so that we can kind of control the safety aspects of everything. And that's kind of what our goal is. And that's why when developers are developing in Spring Hill and they contact us, they're not required to develop according to the Village of Spring Hill. And so Councilmember Gina Gregory and I usually meet with them with, like I said, those goals in mind to come into as most compliance with the Village of Spring Hill, meet the needs of the developer, and also be sensitive to the surrounding community to make sure that we're doing whatever we can do to buffer the surrounding community with anything that we're doing. Because we're all about, we want as many people on the street as possible. We want businesses to thrive in our area. Like we said, that property has been commercial for many, many, many years. I know the gentleman who owned it, and he previously wanted to sell it. He was trying to sell it as a gas station. And there would be no buffering at all in a development like that. This is we think we've worked to benefit everybody. You know, we've listened to everybody's needs, and we've tried to be a mediator for every single one of them and make the best of the development for everybody.
Okay, Mr. Millens, you good? All right, Mr. Burrows? Gentlemen, sir, I'd like for you to come back. Please.
Stay here. You don't mind.
Sir.
I'm not going to make this long, and I'm certainly not going to dispute any of the. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me talk with you for a minute.
Yes, sir.
I think they did make a mistake by not contacting y'all in that facility. But okay, let's move forward now.
Okay.
That's done. You can't fix that.
Right.
Let's try to fix you and the other side. See, the problem is that I think he mentioned, would a wall suffice?
Okay, I said I like the plan that she has.
See, let me tell you what I'm saying. They got property rights, and so do you.
Yeah, I understand that.
So it looks like we need a compromise here.
No, I'm about to compromise. I think that her plan is good, but here's the young lady that owns the piece of property that's right next to her.
Hi, I'm Darlene Jackson, and this is my house right here. And my driveway.
Ma'am, if you speak
Oh.
to them,
Yeah,
would you address and then-
3767 Spring Hill Avenue. I don't have a problem with anything. I'm glad for them to clear it off because I'm tired of cleaning up all those leaves blowing over there on my property.
Okay.
My concern is the driveway, all the trees right there. Now, I was out there when the surveyor came, and it's one tree that was right next to the property line, but coming up in my driveway, I got a brick wall, for my driveway, coming up into the driveway. The tree on the property over there has bust my wall, so I was concerned about how they was going to do do that wall down at the street, coming up into my driveway. Because I got it on both sides. I got a circular drive, and all of it is matching. So I got the wall in the front matching, and on the other side, the driveway is matching. But on that side where the property line is, the tree next to the property line has bust that wall right there. So I was just wondering how they was gonna do that to match everything that I already have.
You
And
think
my mother-in-law and father-in-law built that house.
You think y'all could get together and
Yeah,
and
that's what I
solve
want
this?
them, yeah, because I'm fine. I just want to know, I like for everything to be matching. And
Well,
so,
see,
like I say,
what we
I got
all can
leaves
hear
flying
now
everywhere.
is done.
Sir?
They made a mistake by not calling, but now we need to decide.
Yeah, I'm fine, because like I said, that'll
What's the
take
next
less work
step?
off of me.
I mean, I would just like to say, we're not the developer.
Mhm.
You know, we're not developing this property.
Right.
We are just strictly meeting as an intermediary with the developer to try to make the very best development possible.
And he
So,
been talking
you know,
about
I can't speak to any
Yeah.
of your concerns. I mean, that would certainly be
Okay.
developers and how they're going to screen
Okay.
and do that
Mhm.
for you. We just strictly just meet with them when they call us to try to make sure that the development is most in compliant
Okay.
with the Village of Spring Hill Master Plan,
Mhm.
and that it works as well as possible for anybody
It'll
that's
sure
in the
take a
surrounding
lot of work off of me.
So what's the solution?
Oh, I just
For
want
both
to see how they
parties.
want to do the part on my wall, you know, that's
Well,
down there. And, you know, and make
See-
everything match.
We want you to be happy, but we want them to, at least I can't say we.
Like I say, I've been there since
I'd like to see the-
1991.
See the complex go up.
Right, I know. Mhm.
Okay,
So-
we're on the same page.
Okay, thank you.
We solidified now? Okay, okay, thank you very much.
In regard,
Sir?
yeah, in regard to the closeness of that building being to McGregor Avenue, she's said that, and this is the first I've heard, that they are going to change that entire corner into something different, which I had no idea about. But Sandtown Community Action Group would love to have more information, that we won't be opposing some of the ideas that you have whenever you come down, if we knew what was going on. So,
I'm good.
All right, thank you all very much. Anyone else in favor? Anyone else? Yes, Council Lady, please go.
Well, good afternoon to Mr. Chairman and board members and all the staff. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. I think we've got into a lot more discussion than I had anticipated. As Ms. St. John stated, I worked with her as well as the development team who plans to develop on this property either way, and it is zoned B2, which means they can develop under current city code as is, which means they don't have to put in wide sidewalks, they don't have to put up any sort of buffering for parking. It just goes. We have a huge parking lot, and the neighbors who live across the street and next door will look out their windows and see lots of parking. So Linda contacted me about helping. We got together with the team and we worked through these variances to make it more compatible for the area and also to protect those neighbors that you're talking about and that you've heard from. If we didn't do this, they would have to come back for a variance anyway for some parking. If they had not agreed to work with us on trying to come into compliance with some of these parts of the Village of Spring Hill plan to come into compliance, you would have seen me and Linda in here in opposition because it would not be community friendly. It would be a huge 3-story building, as you've heard, with a huge parking lot for everybody to see every day, all day. And I don't really think that's what any of us want. We want to do what is best for our community, and that's everybody. I work with all of my communities. I was just a part of defeating a zoning change that tremendously impacted the Sandtown community. You might have heard about that. It was a long process, a lot of different ideas going on there, but we defeated it because it was the best thing for the community. We are here to discuss a variance, not zoning, not community groups, who's on them, who's not. We all work together, and I think this will be in the best interest of the community to do these. I was writing some notes to try to make sure I had everything I wanted to talk with y'all, but I think if you drive over in the area, you also see that there are some other developments. The blue building, as everybody refers to it, is next door. Another building is getting ready to be built. It's under construction. The new fire station is going up. It, too, is coming into compliance with the Village of Spring Hill as much as possible. We'll have the wide sidewalks. It's going to be moved up to the building and also have a park. So we're doing a lot of work for this entire community to make it better. And that's what we want to see, to make it better as much as possible while still allowing this gentleman to do the business, to have the kind of business that he says he needs, to have the amount of parking that he says he needs, for this 3-story building. This is not complete Village of Spring Hill plan. If it was, we wouldn't have the 3-story building. It would be different. But the Village of Spring Hill plan now is optional. It is not mandatory. So again, we are just trying to do what is best in the best interest of everybody in the community to try to make it better and to protect the property rights of the people who live next door and across the street while still allowing this gentleman to have his business.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'm sorry, Gina Gregory, Mobile City Council, District 7. The one thing I forgot.
Anyone else in favor? Hearing none, open for board discussion so we can lay this to rest.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move for approval.
Second.
Moved, properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposers by the same? Hearing none.
We have one.
One in opposition. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Uh, 6313 0012062020, St. Louis 554 LLC, 151 North Cedar Street and 554 St. Louis Street. Please come, sir.
BJ Lyon, 960 Government Street. Do you want to take both of these together? The way it's set, it's the parking variance first before the building itself.
Would that be okay?
6 and 6 is the parking variance, and number 7 is the building variance.
7 and then come back to 6? Please, in that order. Thank you, Council.
Okay. Number 7 is a transparency, two different transparency variances. This project is a mixed-use development. It would contain 176 apartment units and 3,000 square feet of retail, approximately $33 million project. It is in the Downtown Development District Warehouse Subdistrict. And in that district, first of all, let me say, the staff has recommended both of these variances, and we agree with that. We agree with the conditions, and so I'm just going to go over it with you. 80% transparency on primary frontage and then 30% on secondary frontage. And the plans, the initial transparency on the front was 36%, and we drew the plans to 42% transparency, but further transparency is impossible because of the structural integrity requirements for the building. And so the staff has acknowledged that is as good as it gets and has recommended approval for that. On the east elevation, secondary frontage, which requires 30%, the plans were redrawn from 13% to provide 28% transparency. Any further transparency is impossible because the outside walls of the building contain shield the sprinkler system room, the electrical room, and maintenance office. And so they are part of the structural part of the building, and no more windows are possible in those offices. Turning to the second variance is the use variance, which is number 6 for the freestanding parking lot across the street. It's already being used as a parking lot. It's had a dilapidated maintenance building on it with no architectural value, which cannot be repurposed. The special conditions on that one are the lack of sufficient parking areas in close proximity to this mixed-use development, which create an unnecessary hardship The staff recognizes and approves the fact that the variance is necessary for the public safety and convenience of the tenants, retail customers, and those who would otherwise have to park on the street with an extending walking distance. And this parking lot is catty corner across the street. The staff also pointed out that this variance is necessary to contribute to the economic viability of this area, which has been neglected for many years. And so the overall recommendation on both variances is to approve them.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the board?
I've got one, Mr. Chairman. BJ, is this rendering that
That's
was
right,
submitted?
yes. The
I mean,
rendering-
that's what is going to be built?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I think each of you have one, and obviously the bottom floor is the retail, and the upper floors are the apartments, with parking underneath.
When are they?
As
gonna-
well.
When will they start on the project, do you know? Just one other question, maybe to staff. When I was looking through the book, it was just really hard to get a feel for the aesthetic and just, I guess, trying to, understand the transparency issue. Do we have any kind of requirement, or can we require? I mean, it's a lot easier to see something like this, and I know it's hard to duplicate sometimes, but is there any leeway on that, or is there a standard, or?
Well, the code, the Downtown Development District regulations do require that applicants provide drawings that will illustrate compliance, so they would, at minimum, provide elevations of all of the facades of the building, and then they would have to provide their calculations of compliance with transparency issues, which then staff tries to verify through the software we have available. So in terms of having a rendering like that, there is no requirement currently in the code for a rendering, just the elevations.
The other thing to consider is the size. You know, you have a very large building, and I think that is even a bit larger. This is a sheet of paper, so
Yeah.
it is hard to get the information in printed form to the board when you're dealing with a multi-story building, trying to look at windows.
I have Representative Hargrove Engineering, if you'd all like to ask questions about the transparency and the structural issues that created that, if you'd like to.
I'm Tom Nelson with Hargrove Engineers and Constructors, 20 South Royal Street. Subject to any questions you might have on the transparency issue.
Any
No
questions? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, anyone in favor of this application? Anyone in opposition? Oh, come on, ma'am.
Well, I'm kind of not either, but I just want to make some comments on context, because there are some things that are concerning. But I'm not necessarily saying I'm opposed, but a couple of things. The transparency is not a light issue. It's a very, very important issue, especially on the main street, like Bob was talking earlier, and Mr. Lyons was talking about, this being a street where retail is going to develop, and the transparency is a very, very important part of keeping the pedestrian interested as they're walking down the street. It looks like they've tried really, really hard. I mean, I don't know how, it's a full storefront of shopfront, so I'm not sure if there's some conflict on how the transparency's calculated or what, but that can be addressed at another time. The issue of the parking lot, however, is of concern. There's been a matter already where a parking lot was approved and then turned over. This is a little bit different in that it's kind of is a parking lot, and there's certainly no love lost with the buildings. What I would say is that this is a very prominent, large piece of property on St. Louis Street on a corner, it is unideal to have a parking lot there. So, but this isn't a perfect application in that it is kind of already a bit of a parking lot. And so I think there's a good argument there. But the argument that this has to be done because people are too afraid to park on the street is, I think, reflective of some bad management on the city's behalf, because we want people to park on the street. We want people to feel safe parking on the street, and that's really the only way the street's going to feel safe, where the cars are going to be tamed, like was mentioned earlier. And that we don't take up valuable private land storing cars, that we allow the place where the asphalt already is for the cars to be, that we want customers to feel safe parking on the street. And so that, to some degree, was worrisome in the application, that they feel like that's an important argument, and that's something that we need to manage better. And so that's kind of my ramble on that.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Very insightful. Any questions before you leave? Anyone questions? Hearing none, we're going to vote on this as it is outlined on the agenda and take 6313. All in favor, as it's been recommended for approval by staff. Is there a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there a motion?
Motion?
Yep.
Make a motion to approve, subject to staff recommendation.
Number 6 and 7.
Yes, sir.
You wanted to take them together? 6 and 7? Okay, let's take them together then. Second. Moved, properly seconded, you've heard it as stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposes by the same, hearing none. It's ordered. Take it. All right, I think that brings us to the end of our journey here today, and any other business that needs to come before us? Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn.